Okay, well, welcome our audience on LinkedIn, our broad audience. We have a special guest today. We're continuing to our Agentes Latinos del Cambio series in Digiday en Español. And today we're going to deep dive onto a great study that I actually myself, I've been handled as a tool for, talking about Hispanic marketing in the United States. It's unleashing America's full potential through diverse consumers. And the unleashing part is a very interesting one. And who better to have today for us to explain this than Jorge Plasencia, co-founder, chairman, and CEO of República Havas, part of the Havas Group. República being specialized in multicultural marketing. Jorge, bienvenido a Esta Tu Casa, Digiday. Welcome.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you to you and your team at Digiday for having me. Really happy to be here and look forward to this conversation. Thank you again for the invitation.
Jorge, República Havas, and I love the República with the accent in the U, right?
Yeah.
You guys released these findings and under the meaningful brands, and I think to be meaningful, you have to know who you're talking to, and like the New America is having so much detail on who are the Latinos and how we approach this demographic, successfully approach this demographic. So let's talk about the study itself. When did you guys did the study? Let's talk about the 411, generically 411 of the study. When did this happen? Why did you guys went through it? And how did you manage to put the research together?
Well, Danny, thank you. Havas, it's been 5 years now that Republica, we joined forces with Havas, and it's been, an amazing journey with our partners and colleagues at Havas now for 5 years. Havas has been doing for over a decade, they've been doing a global study called Meaningful Brands, right? And the Meaningful Brand study is all about, really understanding pretty much, what the title is, right? What makes brands meaningful in this fast-changing world, right? Because the more and more that we do the study at Havas, the more we realize that, brands could disappear tomorrow, and most people, wouldn't care. Why? Because there's no deep connection to brands, right? So at Havas, we feel that for there to be a connection to brands have to be connecting in meaningful ways, right? And when you think of diverse audiences, it's all about cultural relevance, right? And tugging at our heartstrings, right? So this new study that we was put out a few months ago. It was unveiled in New York at the AIM conference. And the study is led by our team at Havas. And I'm proud to say two extraordinary women, two of my colleagues, Catarina Goncalves, who is our Chief Strategy Officer here at República, and Linnea Caro, who's part of our team at Havas Media. So they, are the ones that have led the study together with our global insights team at Havas. And it's been fantastic. It's been fantastic. Clients have really been excited about the study. It's excited about understanding the study, and it's been really positive. And any opportunity we have to get the study out into both clients and to media like yourself, it's important for us to share the study with the world.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the 411. In the study, 44% of the diverse audience believe that brands should prioritize satisfying individual needs. And I want to start by asking you, so people is basically, I'm not going to forget the brand if they understanding what are my needs as a bilingual, as a multicultural. What is that relevance that brands are missing, since 44% of the diverse audience is like prioritizing that satisfaction of individual needs, Jorge?
Right. I think what's important there, Denny, is that as diverse audiences, we can't think of, and when we talk about our specifically here in North America, in the United States, when we think about audiences, audiences are not monolithic, right? And we need to think of people as individuals, consumers as individuals, right? And I think that's what consumers are looking for. Consumers are looking for, what, not only is this brand functional, do I, when I brush my teeth with this brand, is it doing its job of cleaning and, my teeth and getting my mouth fresh and what have you? But is it a brand that understands me as a consumer, right? Is it a brand that understands my culture? And I think that's what we're talking about here, right? That, that we can't think of audiences as a monolith, right? We have to think that, that there's a lot of diversity and complexity in all the different audiences that are out there. And brands need to be sensitive to that, right? There's not a one size fits all strategy, right? And you have to be very intentional with your messaging and intentional with how you communicate that message. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Part of that reason is because, like, a lot of Latinos, like, the approach for the Hispanic demographic, it's a little bit more complicated because then you have Colombians, you have Mexicans, you have Puerto Ricans. So let's talk about that.
We come from over 20 countries, right, on the Hispanic side, right?
Correct. I believe, like, the complexity is to understand the needs of each community and how important and relevant is for brands to understand their targets. So if you're, doing the general marketing strategy within the New York area, probably you'll have few difference versus the one you do your strategy in Los Angeles because of the climates of the particular, people that lives in each city, right? New York versus LA. So let's navigate into that. And what is the study kind of like giving you in terms of, like, for brands to, like, understand that is important and relevant to get who they are targeting in terms of, like, demographics in cities, like main cities like, New York, Los Angeles, Miami?
Right. As obviously the Diverse Consumers report speaks to, obviously, the Hispanic community, the African American, Black, Asian American, Pacific Islander. When you're speaking to Hispanics specifically, since you talked about Latinos, I can tell you that, kind of our strategy that we always tell clients is that kind of think globally, act locally. What does that mean? Kind of have that overarching message for the brand, right? How does that message, how do you communicate the message of the brand, the essence of the brand, right? But then how can you tailor that message to the different, in the United States, to the different cities, right? And like you're saying, the way you would speak to mostly Mexican consumer base in Southern California is different to how you'd speak to Puerto Rican base in the tri-state area of New York, right? The consumer message is got to be a little different from one group to the other. Why? Because again, we all come from Latin American countries, right? We all, for the most part, native language of our parents, grandparents, and even us at home is Spanish. But, there's differences with our different communities, right? The differences are that we come from over 20 countries. And since you come from all these different countries, we come from all these different countries. Me, as I was born in the United States, but my family's from Cuba, right? There's customs, there's traditions, there's nuances that are very unique to the Cuban community. Same thing with the Mexican community, Colombian, Chilean, Venezuelan. I mean, you name it, wherever people are from, right? On the Latino community, there's things. I always say, Danny, that there's things that unite us as Hispanics, right? As Latinos, there's things that unite us, and those are obviously language, our love of country, of our countries of origin, or where our parents and grandparents come from. Even if we're in this country, and if we were born in this country, there's a connection that we all have as Hispanic Americans to the country of origins of our parents and grandparents, right? Because there's that connection to the place where they were born, to the culture, to the food, to the music, right? Yet reaching us here in the United States, most of us, like myself, are bicultural, right? What does that mean? We stay very connected to the roots of our families, yet we're also, what I call 200%er. We stay connected to the roots of our and the traditions of our families, yet we're very much living our American, reality, right? As people that went to school here, that were born here, and that grew up here, right? So where I'm going with this is that all those things I see as opportunities, and why agencies like Republica Havas, our strategy team is so important. Our consumer insights team is so important. Our data analytics team is so important because, again, this isn't a spray and pray strategy where the same message goes out to the whole community. No, it's really honing in on the differences from city to city, right? There's things that unite us as a community, right? But then what are those differences as you speak to the different audiences, be it that they be from South America, be it if they're from the Caribbean, be it if they're from Latin America, wherever they're from, there's those differences.
Absolutely. I think one of the reasons why I love to report on sports marketing, and as diverse as we sound, like for instance, Puerto Ricans love baseball, Colombians and Argentinians, they love soccer. So, the understanding of the dynamic when we report on those topics and how brands get into those calendars of important dates for us, right? Like, obviously, World Cup is like a phenomenon for everybody. But like when it comes to Copa America, for instance, and they know that they're targeting Latinos, chances are maybe no Puerto Ricans are watching 100% the soccer games, but maybe Argentinians are, of course, and Colombians are, because they understanding that the demographic is what is behind the MLS or, like Copa America or soccer in general. But then if the MLB season is coming up, they understand that Puerto Ricans or Cubans, they're they have a lot of players in the big league. So obviously, I guess that dynamic of the brands, or this understanding who are they targeting, their products, their placement products, the activations in events. If you have Hispanic Heritage Month, well, they have the regular activations for every Latino out there during Hispanic Heritage Month. But what about Independence Day? There's in September, for instance. That's why they do a Hispanic Heritage Month there, because then we have the Mexican Independence Day, and then we have a few of the Central American countries' Independence Day there. But what if we step out of that box and jump into El 20 de Julio, right? July 20th, which is the Colombian Independence Day, and understand that there are needs there, and the Colombians are consuming other different kind of product in that sense. This goes to my second question, Jorge, because it's for me, it's shocking understanding that 54% of diverse consumer wouldn't care if most brands disappear tomorrow. That finding of the study is wow me, because 54% is a lot, it's a big percentage out there. So whatever brands are doing, they really have to truly understand in order to stay in their Latino mind, in the Latino consumer mind, Jorge.
Yeah, I mean, Denny, think about it. In my lifetime, there's so many brands that when I was younger were so relevant, right, that don't exist today. Think about it, right? So many brands that were major brands on the retail side, on the consumer side, consumer packaged goods, that don't exist today. And I think more than ever, brands obviously have the opportunity to be alive, right? To have that persona, to have the voice on social media, to be able to interact two-way, right? Before, brands were only speaking to consumers. Now they're having conversations with consumers, right? Consumers, we can be very honest with brands in regard to if we like a product or if we don't, and post about it and all that. That wasn't the case before, right? So today, more so than ever, brands have the opportunity to truly connect in meaningful ways, right? And to do good. What part of what the study says is that it's important to do good. But consumers want to know when a company is doing good, when a company is giving back, right? When a company is doing something for their community. They want you to tell them, right? They want you to share that story, right? So I say that because in regard to brands disappearing, it's those numbers are staggering, right? That 54% of consumers feel that a brand can disappear tomorrow and they wouldn't care. As marketers, that's alarming, right? So what do we have to do as marketers? We got to make sure that, as stewards of brands, as people that are helping, companies and marketers communicate their brands to the world, to audiences, we got to make sure that we're doing things that keep brands relevant, right? And that keep brands front and center, and that keep brands part of the conversation. And and like we say, brands have to walk the talk. They have to really commit to what they say they are as a brand, right? Or how they communicate that message. They gotta really deliver on that, right? Because if not, in this world we live in, consumers can very quickly pivot to a competitor, right? And to can say, you know what, this isn't the brand for me. This brand doesn't understand me. This brand doesn't get me. So I'm going to go to their competitor. So that's why we feel at Havas that making brands meaningful and making sure that brands are connecting and tugging at the heartstrings is so important.
Yes, and that's point in plan to my next question is like how Havas and República Havas is trying to, like, when you guys take a client, someone that is like actually interested in to like really expand their reach on the Hispanic demographic, what are those key elements that Havas, República Havas brings to the table, and why it's so relevant to have you guys understanding who is that target, especially because we've been talking about like the difference between, Mexicans, Colombians, and Venezuelans, and but having that key agency that actually patterns the way for a successful campaign in a certain demographic. Why is that key, and what do you guys put on the table for those big brands trying to be relevant and not disappearing, obviously?
Well, I think it's a, what's key, obviously, like with anything, right? As marketers, when you study marketing in college, what is the essence of marketing? It's those 4 Ps, right? And I think it's taking that and just making it so much deeper. Where I'm going with this is that in this day and age study, like I was saying, for brands to connect, they have to have a rock solid strategy, right? They really have to connect with people in ways that, as I've said several times, tugs at the heartstrings, right? And how's the best way to do that? Really understanding who you're speaking to. Who is that sweet spot? If it's a woman, in age range 25 to 34. Well, it's really understanding that woman. Really understanding what are the things that make her, that inspire her, that make her happy, that she's juggling different things many times, right? That as she's got, she's working full time, she maybe has a family full time, she's caring for maybe for her elderly grandparents or for her aging parents, whatever it is, right? So it's really understanding that, and how does that brand fit into that person's lifestyle, right? I think that's really important. Is how does that brand come in to be a part of that person's lifestyle? So I think that's key. Here at República Havas and at Havas, we always say that our kind of our success derives from really rock solid strategy. Really strategy that is both not only understanding the consumer, but also kind of that communication strategy. How are we going to get that message in a way that's quick and smart and authentic? As we're creating brand messaging, right? So I think that's kind of a big part of how we create our campaigns here, right? It's and it's really having a deep understanding of the consumer. Again, if it's a general market campaign, if it's an African American, Black, Hispanic, Asian American, if it's a true what we call cross-cultural campaign, which is a campaign that kind of is at the intersection of the different cultures. However it is that we're going to be reaching the goals of that client, it's something that is very important, that it's very clear upfront from that strategy.
Jorge, can you share any of those campaigns that you consider successful because like the brand actually did the right approach they sit down on the table and understood the consumer, the Hispanic targeting, like whatever brand it was or product?
Yeah,
if you can share.
Listen, absolutely. I mean, we have, before I go there, just at Republica Havas, we have four main kind of areas of focus for the agency. We have the creative division, we have media planning and buying, we have our health division, and then we have what's called experiences, which is events, activations, anything that's consumer touch points, at the community level, right? And I say that to you because I would say one example is work we do with I'm thinking out loud which client I can speak to. Work we've done with, let's say, Dupixent. Dupixent is a brand. I don't know if you've heard of Dupixent, but it's a brand that we work with on the pharmaceutical side that first started pretty much as brands first start in the market, which is kind of tailoring the general market message and transcreating it to in this case specifically Hispanic market, and then from there we did creating brand new original content and campaigns targeted at the Hispanic market. And then the third one was what's a cross-cultural campaign, which is, again, that intersection of the different cultures. And I'm proud to say that recently, a few weeks ago, at the Expectives conference in Boston, that client, together, Sanofi Regeneron, that client, and Republica Havas, and our partners at Havas Health and You, we won Multicultural Campaign of the Year. And again, it's because the campaign not only connected, right, but it also delivered on business goals, right? It was a very successful campaign for our client. So, so that's one example. I mean, I've got it. There's examples with our Walmart client, with our Sedanos client, which is a big grocery store chain, with AARP, with National Pork Board. I mean,
plenty. Yes.
We have a bunch of different clients. I always say that we have clients, Danny, that some are much more deep in the markets, right? They're much more deep in the multicultural markets. We have others that are more developing their focus in multicultural. But the good news is that we have clients that have told us that 100% of their growth over the next 5 years is going to come from the multicultural markets. That's exciting and that's huge, right? Because what that's telling you is that these brands feel like they've penetrated the general market, right? And that they have to keep growing. So, as you look at the United States, these are markets that are as emerging markets, they're continuing to grow, and you have a lot of opportunity to growth in what's called CAGR, in category for your brand by really having messaging and campaigns that are targeting these audiences.
Jorge, now that you mentioned AARP, it's a brand that always people get related with help. And now that you're mentioning in the study, 5 of 10 people that you interview say they're personally affected by one or more crises. But at the same time, Latinos seem to be more optimistic about the future, though, regardless of what they, think about being hit by, economic crisis, health crisis, you name it. That figure right there, I mean, the brands that are understanding that the Latinos at some point are not necessarily open arms, they are big consumers, yes, but they're being hit by crisis. How do you manage to explain that to a big brand and still have the Hispanic consumer relevant in their plans?
Well, it's a good point. I would just just qualitatively, as we look at the Hispanic audience specifically, it's an audience that many times either them or their ancestors, their parents or grandparents, were immigrants, right? And they came to this country to for a better life, right, for them and their families, right? So I think that just brings this outlook on things that they tend to be more they tend to look at things in a more positive way, even if their reality isn't that positive. They always feel like the horizon is gonna be positive, right? And the future is gonna be positive. And I think it also has to do with it's a community that a lot of what's been done about if you look at studying the Hispanic community, there's a lot of what we call fatalism or Marianismo, which is very everything is in the hands of a higher being, right?
Right, correct.
Very faith-based in that regard, and that they and as I always say, yes, but you also have to ayúdate que yo te ayudaré. You got to help yourself
Totally.
too.
Totally.
That notion that the universe is going to help you, but you got to help yourself. So it's but overall, it's a very positive. The Latino community has a very positive outlook on the economy, on how things are going to end up, on life overall, right? And especially versus the non-Hispanic white population.
Totally. And the census is calculating that Latinos are currently 19% of the total U.S. populations, but they're expected to rise 26%. So with the 26% population, the amount of power, the acquisition power that the Latinos gain in the U.S. is outstanding. So obviously for Latinos, economy is number one priority. They're very optimistic, but then again, yes, they've been hit by the economic crisis like everybody else. But minorities, especially minorities, they lose their jobs and some sort of their hopes, of course. But then again, they're still optimistic. And I think the brands padding that way of them feeling comfortable. So for instance, if they're gonna buy a car, it can't necessarily be a super expensive car, but at least a car that will somehow give them a little bit of savings when the gas rise hits or something. So I think that's something that brands need to understand when targeting Latinos as well. And if they're anticipating changes and they've been hit by economy and this and that, the products, obviously they have to be good products, but something that is accountable to their pockets and to their future. Even though they're optimistic, they still have to, maintain the whole household. As you mentioned, you do have, the Latino mother, taking care of their eldest or their kids or this and that. You have different circumstances, but
great. I'm sorry. No.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, at Havas, as we look at meaningful brands, it's important to say, Denny, that there's what we call, the different benefits of a brand, right? Every brand has different benefits, right? And at Havas, we kind of divvy these up into three main kind of parts, right? One is, personal, functional, and collective. Functional is obviously, going back to my toothpaste example earlier, does it brush, when I brush my teeth, does it work well? Are my teeth clean? And does my mouth feel fresh, right? So that's what's called the functional benefit, right? And then you've got the collective benefits. Is that a brand that's doing something positively for society? So maybe doing something positively in regard to the environment, or doing something positive in public health, or something in that regard, right? And then there's the personal benefits, which is, am I inspired by the brand, right? Is this a brand that connects with me as an individual, right? So those are the different things, right? So I think, going back to what you were just saying, I agree with you, because when you look at our multicultural markets and diverse consumers, 42%, like you were saying, of our population is diverse, but we're driving about 100% of the growth of the population, right? Over the next 20 years, the growth is going to come from from our communities, right? From the Hispanic community, from the Black, Asian American, Pacific Islander. It's going to come from these communities. So brands that are not connecting today in meaningful ways, or starting to talk about what are our plans to do this, they're going to be left behind. They're going to be left behind because the opportunity is there, right? The opportunity is there to leverage the fact that these consumers see the world in a much more positive way. These individuals are very brand loyal, right? They're much more loyal, and they're very specific about, this is a brand that connects with me and that speaks to me and that cares about my community. I'm going to be loyal to this brand. There's a lot of that in our communities, right? So I think the more that as marketers, we appreciate that, the more opportunity that our companies and brands are going to have.
I think you mentioned the word inspiration. When brands inspire a good future, when brands are inspiring Latinos, making it big, making it in Hollywood, making it in Wall Street, right, in corporate America, I think that is something that also engages the Hispanic audience. And I understand that out of this study, República Havas created 5 guidelines to help the brands grow and become meaningful to diverse audiences. Let's wrap up with that, Jorge, and then we pass to our crew, to give our audience a little bit of a space for questions, and that way we can just wrap it up with a nice conclusion. Go ahead, Jorge.
So, the 5, and I've spoken a little bit to it throughout, but I can, kind of say, the 5 kind of areas, like I said, walk the talk, launch and stay. In other words, say what you say you are, be transparent and honest as a brand, but not only, because what sometimes happens is marketers, they'll launch an effort in the Black community or the Asian community or the Hispanic community. Oh, we tried it, it didn't work. And then they'll go out, they'll leave the effort. No, you've got to launch it, you've got to stay. It's about endurance, it's about perseverance, it's about continuing to connect, right, in those meaningful ways. So, the first one, is walk the talk. And what we call launch and stay, right? So that's number 1 is launch and stay. Number 2 is good deeds make good business. So it's about, being involved in the community, make me smarter, right? If you're a financial brand, teach me how to get smarter with my money, how to get smarter with investing, things like that, right? So good deeds are good business. So that's the second one. The third one is what we call behave like a coach, not an observer. Again, help me help me reach my goals. Help me understand that by buying your brand, I'm doing a good thing for my family, or I'm doing a good thing for my future. You understand? So, behave like a coach and not an observer is something that we feel. And then the next one, number 4, meet expectations and unlock new horizons. So, what we mean by this is, share that optimism as a brand, that joy, inspire me, right? 48% of our audiences want to, brands that inspire them, right? That they feel that emotional connection to. And there's, here in our study, there's a Black American woman, 37 years old, that says, brands can inspire me by showing things I wasn't aware were even possible, right? So inspire me as a brand. That's something. And then, the last one is champion and accept their challenges. And, what this is, consumers want brands that provide an interpersonal connection. 46% of diverse consumers prefer brands that provide an interpersonal connection. Brands that, act like a challenger. Brands that don't come across in a distant, foreign way, right? But brands that truly come across as champions. So kind of those are the 5 areas that our team, kind of came up with for meaningful brands, diverse consumers.
Great. Gracias, Jorge. All right, so it's time for us to open the mic to the floor. If any, you guys can raise your hand, and we guys pass you over the speaking room, so that way, in this new way of reaching out talking about reaching out cultures and demographics on LinkedIn. And guys, the audience right there, if you guys want to, ask questions, you can raise your hand and I just pass the mic. Meantime, the importance, Jorge, like if somebody want to ask a question, I wanted to add something about like social media influencers, the digital era. Want to understand like the impact, because also Latino are very like mobile, like really super huge social media users. And when we talk about inspirations, I see a lot of brands trying to get those influencers that inspire. So you see big brands, catching up on Messi, for instance. I always do like the sports marketing plug in there, but I think we kind of like get along with that dynamic where somebody is inspiring us, somebody's selling a product, but in a way that if he drink it, I'll drink it somehow. How relevant is that influencer marketing within the whole inspiration concept and getting into the Hispanic demographic as well, Jorge?
Yeah, I think in our communities that's really important, Denny, because, again, our consumers want to see themselves reflected in the content. They want to see themselves reflected in the messaging. They want to see themselves reflected in the ethos, right, of how the brand is coming to life. And I think, when you're working with influencers and creators that come from these communities, and this, specifically in the Hispanic community, there's that connection. Obviously, Lionel Messi is a global phenomenon, right? And people of many different countries and cultures connect to Leo Messi. But I would say specifically on the Hispanic side, given that he's from Argentina, there's that connection, right? There's like, little children that are Hispanic, they want to be Lionel Messi one day, right? So there's that immediate connection because he does speak Spanish and because he does come from a Latin American country, right? So I think going back to what you're saying, absolutely. I mean, when you see a Latin celebrity or a Latin influencer share the message of a brand, what that does immediately is make that brand relevant to that audience, right? Because there's an immediate connection to the person that's communicating the message, and then there's an immediate connection to how they're communicating the message, because obviously they're going to communicate it in a way that's very, specific to the audience, right? Because they come from that audience, right? They don't have to. They don't have to be something different than, Leo Messi if he's communicating in Spanish to a Spanish-speaking audience. It is who he is. That's his essence, right? So I definitely think there's a lot of value in finding influencers, finding creators that can connect deeply, right, through culture. For a brand with an audience.
Yeah, if you don't have the budget for Messi, because not necessarily everybody does.
Because you mentioned Messi.
Right? if you don't have that budget, that kind of a budget, which is probably huge, maybe you it's worth to check on those influencers that are also bilingual, bicultural. They live in every city in the United States, where you can reach out. It depends on the product. I see a lot of like our reporting at Glossy, and as part of the Digiday media campaigns and everything. I see that a lot of reporting is about influencers and how do they get this and how do they kind of like shake hands with like entrepreneurs and brands that are like just more like brand new, like 5 years like old or something. And the success is like really targeting those influencers that actually are practically living within the community and sharing those products. So I believe also because of the new generation of Latinos are like mobile users, like a big like social media consumers. I think it's also worth to check those kind of influencers, multicultural, multilingual. What do you think?
No, I mean, absolutely. I think if you can find influencers that connect in multidimensional ways, right? That not only language, but they represent different parts of our communities, right? I think obviously that's even stronger, right? But I think going back to what we were saying about soccer, let's say, there's phenomenal soccer players in a lot of MLS teams, right? If we go to here to Inter Miami, there's phenomenal soccer players that may not have the deep global, persona that Messi has, but that are, that can speak to a brand, right? And that can be representing a brand and that are still part of the team, right? So where I'm going with this is that I think that, it all depends obviously on opportunity, on budget, but there's definitely ways to connect. And we could be an Afro-Latino player, right? That is not only Hispanic, but Black, but also Black, Hispanic, and Afro-Latino players again are connecting in culture with our communities. So it depends on how that brand. Again, it goes back to who you're targeting and who you're speaking to, and what the sweet spot is for the brand, right? But yes, going back to what we're saying, connecting through sports. I was just Friday night here in Miami. I was at an event called Latinos in Sports, specifically about the growth of sports in our communities, right? With World Cup coming to the United States in 2026, obviously there's such a vast opportunity for brands to connect with World Cup here in the United States and Canada and Mexico, right, in 2020. And I see our on kind of the wait, kind of the journey to the World Cup 2026. But be it soccer, be it baseball, be it basketball, be it NFL, hockey, not as much, but I think it'll begin growing in our.
It's hanging in there, yes.
Right, exactly.
They have an NHL in Español now.
Oh yeah, so listen, there's definitely opportunities, but again, like you said at the beginning, a lot of our connection to sports comes from the countries where either you were born and bred or where your parents and grandparents came from and instilled those sports in you as a child, right? That's your connection. I mean, myself, my dad was a huge baseball fan. Huge. May he rest in peace. He was a huge baseball fan. And for my father, I ended up working in sports. I worked. I was with the Marlins here, our Major League Baseball team. I was lucky enough that I was there back in 1996, 97 when we first won the World Series. I was part of the team.
Congrats on that.
But you can imagine for my father, having always followed the baseball team.
The Marlins, yeah.
No, in Cuba first, and then here the Marlins, for his son to work for the team. So where I'm going with this is that there's just such a connection to sports, and it's definitely a love language in our community is sports.
This year we're going to have Copa America also hosted in the United States. So we're going to have a few of the main cities as like the stadiums in New York, if I'm not wrong, in LA also, and Miami are going to be hosting some of those games of Copa America, which obviously I believe is Messi kicking off the game. Argentina is kicking off the competition. So I think everything is like one after the other, because right after Copa America, it's Olympics, and we have a lot of sentiment for Olympics in Colombia. I remember, the old days, all of us watching just, like people on the athletic team in Colombia, like, every other athlete that can bring, then again, that can inspire us, that can bring some happiness within our daily lives. It's like those are the things that I think brands are also have to take into consideration when targeting Hispanics. We are super, like, the sports consuming is like our window to escape, like in the stressful times, right? Like the only happiness that Argentina has, within economic crisis and everything, when they won the World Cup, they forgot about everything and they just concentrate on the happiness that brings to their hearts. So I think everything related to sports is some sort of like that momentum of happiness for any demographic whatsoever, but especially for Latinos that are following with, like, as a religion, at least soccer and baseball and Olympics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say that next year is also, we can't forget, 2025 in the U.S. Is the what's called the FIFA Club World Cup. El Mundial de Clubes is going to be played here. June 15th to July 13th, 2025. It's going to be in the U.S. So, there's a lot of, between this year and 2026, there's going to be a lot in regard to soccer, and the opportunity for brands is immense.
I think the MLS and what's happening with Messi at the MLS is like part of the examples that I can give out on like how Latinos are following, buying those expensive tickets, going to the stadiums, or buying the Apple TV Pass and watch the games, even though like I believe Inter Miami wasn't like on the best ranks on the entire tournament when Messi joined, but then now it's getting those numbers, of course, because Messi is there, but like now that they believe and they see the like the amount of followers that Inter Miami has just because Messi joined the team and everything, it's like a 360 of investment right there, obviously, and it's just to show any brand whatsoever in the United States the power of the Latino consumer when it comes like together to the sports thing, So I think that's an impressive. We're gonna still open the mic for any of our audience, any member of our audience. Please raise your hand. We're wrapping up in 5 minutes. So I want to give like the mic out there. I see a lot of like familiar faces within the audience, but please go ahead. If you want to ask en español también, los dos somos bilingües, así que we can always simultaneously translate. And I think that is, and before somebody like, oh, okay, there you go. Katie, Katie is like, Katie, I don't know if she was just smiling. I was just going to say, like, the whole Spanglish, Jorge, have you seen that kind of, like, Spanglish going also in marketing strategies nowadays? How's, like, the reggaeton going on and everything? Yeah. How do you see that? I want to hear your take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we've seen is, I always say that, my generation and younger, I'm 13 years younger than my brother. His generation was the generation that had to shun they pretty much were shunning their culture, right? They didn't speak Spanish as much. They wanted to be more, acculturated, right? Whereas my generation and younger is staying more connected to the language, is staying more connected to the culture, right? And I say that because more and more, the Spanish language is staying relevant, right? More and more young parents are teaching Spanish to their children at home. They're making sure that that the kids first learn Spanish. They're making sure that kids are learning Spanish in school and high school. That's the second language they take, right? Because I think we've all realized that the more that you're well versed in both languages, you have that added bonus of fully knowing both languages, right? And as marketers, again, it goes back to what's the sweet spot of the brand, who are we targeting? But we use Spanish obviously very strategically for clients. And, sometimes we'll wake, what we call wake, which is, we may add a few Spanish words, but the whole message is in English. Or, we may have a message that's fully in English and fully in Spanish, right? It depends on the brand. It depends on the brand and how, what the strategy is for that brand. But the language is still very, very, very much a part of the culture of the Hispanic community, right? The language hasn't gone anywhere and isn't going anywhere.
Well, the music is easy in the pad because you have Shakira, you have J Balvin, you have Bad Bunny. You have Bad Bunny talking in Español in Saturday Night Live. You have Shakira being number one worldwide, regardless of language, with her hit with Facey or whatever his name is. Like, I forgot the name of the song. But, like, anyway, I mean, I think the phenomenon of, like, the reggaeton and the whole Spanglish deal and even Peso Pluma breaking out on Billboard as well. So is that, like, hitting hard also when it comes to, like, branding strategy nowadays, Jorge?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think that music is paramount to our culture and to the brand of our culture, right? And like you're saying, when you've got, I was working in music after I was in sports. I went to music, and I was working for Gloria and Emilio Estefan back in '99, which was the year that. Some people on here that are listening may not be old enough to remember this moment, but I remember when clearly I was working there when Ricky Martin performed "The Cup of Life" on the Grammy Awards in 1999. Yeah. And Denny, that was really I think the beginning of the path that kind of brought us to today was that moment Ricky performing the Cup of Life on the Grammy Awards. Soon thereafter, the Latin Grammys launched, and it was kind of like this momentum around Latin culture that hasn't stopped to today, right? It hasn't stopped all these years later. Here we are 25 years later, and it's been a consistent kind of growth, right, and deepening of Latin music. And if you look back over the last 25 years, obviously, obviously Gloria Estefan in the early days, and Julio Iglesias and Jose Feliciano, and people like that. But then over the years with Ricky Martin, and then Mark Anthony, Jennifer Lopez, Enrique Iglesias, right, and then Cristina Aguilera, and then you take it, into the continuing evolving with Juanes, and then that continues, to obviously, I don't know if I mentioned Shakira, but Shakira también early on, and then all of that is what I think that set the foundation to where we are today in regards to just the fact that Latin culture just permeates the diaspora of America, right? And the fact that reggaeton is one of the most, a genre that many times outsells country music, or that outsells pop or what have you. I mean, just thinking about that, right? Just thinking about the reality of what that means, and like you were talking about with Bad Bunny, and with Peso Pluma, and with with Karol G and Becky G and all these people, and they're just part of the of mainstream American music, right? And Shakira, how she keeps reinventing herself. All of that I think is why the Latin culture specifically, listen, and in the African American community, it's been incredible how we've seen how music has really permeated the diaspora of America, right? Coming from the African American community, and it's been extraordinary. And I think now we're seeing that also in the Latino community. You're seeing how the music is just second nature to mainstream, right? And that wasn't the case back in the day. Back in the day, you had a few Hispanic artists, and they were mostly famous in the Hispanic community, right? And in Latin America or in Spain. Now, those artists are still famous in Latin America and in Spain, but they're also, mega stars here in the United States. They're mega stars in Asia. They're mega stars in parts of Europe. I mean, it's amazing how the music has really permeated the globe.
Absolutely. Well, with that said, I think we did unleash the America's full potential through diverse consumer today. Thanks so much for the insight, the deep dive, as I call it, on this study, Jorge. I think for our audience is a broad journey, to understand the dynamic. We talk about sports, we talk about music, we talk about the day-by-day of a Latino family out there in the United States. So I believe we cover all the bases, just like in baseball, right? Listen. And we really appreciate that. Muchas gracias, Jorge.
Thank you to you and to everybody that listened, and were with us today. Thank you. And Denny, thank you for what you're doing in getting the message out through Digiday en Español. It's so important, to share the message about our audiences with your readers. So thank you, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Parece que tenemos a alguien, si no te importa. A ver, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Go ahead.
Hi, Sarah. You have your hand up. Sorry about that. Sarah, are you there? You may be on mute.
You're mute.
You may be
on mute. No, she's on.
Okay.
Bueno, pero hicimos el wrap up. Muchas gracias, Jorge. Thanks again for
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Y bueno, ustedes continúen siempre conectados con Agentes Latinos del Cambio. This time with LinkedIn Live. And please, all the Unleashing Americans' Full Potential Through Diverse Consumer Society will be shared in this link on a moment. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Bye-bye.